Ardmore schools are preparing for spending cuts. One city commissioner had plenty of questions about rising costs for construction of a new police station, and an Ardmore woman is still in her congressional race. These stories and more on This Week in Ardmore from Ardmore Leader. I'm News Director Michael Dean Smith. Thanks for downloading episode 68 of This Week in Ardmore. This is a weekly podcast from Ardmore Leader dedicated to independent coverage of local news. This week's episode is sponsored by Ardmore Emporium Antiques. More on them in just a moment. For right now, let's catch up on a few headlines of what I've been following around Ardmore, Oklahoma for the week of June 19th. The Ardmore City Commission met on Monday evening with plenty of business to consider. Much of the meeting was dominated by questions from Commissioner Buddy Simon, who had plenty of questions about expenditures from the city's public works and police departments. Votes to remove excess vegetation from dams at 2 city lakes and to rehabilitate some emergency equipment at the city's water treatment plant were all approved after roughly half an hour of discussion with public works officials. More questions about a third price change for construction of a new police department prompted further discussion with the police chief that led to a briefly contentious moment between Simon and a fellow commissioner. The Ardmore City Schools Board of Education also met this week for their June meeting, which was again absent of board president Steve Oliver. Superintendent Andy Davis said that Oliver has been in touch with the district about missing several meetings since April. Board members on Tuesday heard several updates from district officials, including a financial update that projects an estimated $900,000 in spending cuts to future budgets. Board members also approved an update to the district's student handbook that now prohibits pajamas from being worn at any Ardmore school, but not without board member Jimmy John voting no after he questioned the ban's subjectivity and necessity. An Ardmore woman that declared her intent to run for Congress last year is moving on to her party's runoff election later this summer. Jasmine Thomas earned 45% of Democratic voters across the state after polls closed back on Tuesday. And while that may seem like a lot in a field of 5 candidates, it still wasn't enough to secure the 50% of party voters that she needed to secure that nomination. She will face fellow Democrat Jim Priest in a runoff election coming up in late August. Enrollment dates for area schools are coming up next month. Ardmore City Schools this week announced 2 dates of enrollment at 2 different campuses. On the afternoon of Tuesday, July 14th, and on the morning of Wednesday, July 15th, families in the Ardmore School District can get enrolled. Students up to 3rd grade will enroll in the high school gym. 7th and 8th grade students will enroll at the middle school cafeteria, and then high school students will enroll at the high school cafeteria. Enrollment for families in the Plainview School District is scheduled for July 30th. You'll have the opportunity to see some government in action for yourself next week if you're so inclined. The Carter County Commission will hold their weekly meeting coming up on Monday morning and will again consider efforts to create a drug court trust. The Plainview School Board will meet on Monday evening for mostly routine business to close out the fiscal year that ends later this month. Both of those agendas can be found on the respective body's website, cartercountyok.us for the Carter County Commission, plainview.k12.ok.us for the Plainview agenda. The Ardmore Leader Weekly Newsletter is out on this Friday, June 19th. You can find it at a handful of downtown businesses or get it delivered to your email inbox for free by visiting our website, ardmoreleader.com. And if you ever want your thoughts, ideas, stories, or photos in Ardmore's newest and fastest growing media outlet, there are opportunities for that as well on our website, ardmoreleader.com. And as you're getting your plans set for this Juneteenth weekend, don't forget Ardmore Leader's public affairs podcast, The Junction. The 2 most recent interviews have been with organizers of this weekend's Juneteenth celebrations. You can find those and all of our locally produced podcasts on our independently owned podcast server, listen.ardmoreleader.com. Ardmore financial advisor Cody Steele will wrap up our in-depth look at the news here in a moment with his Edward Jones Market Snapshot commentary from Thursday. Now, with trading markets closed on this Juneteenth Friday, Cody's going to give us a wrap on how international news on Iran affected markets to close out this short trading week. We'll also get some insight on what inflation might look like over the summer months. And stick around until the end of the podcast because every episode of This Week in Ardmore wraps up with the schedule. As always, I'll have details about some of those upcoming public meetings. I also have some cool event details for later this month that might interest men, women, and families. That's the headlines. Now let's catch up on what happened this week in Ardmore for the week of June 19th, 2026. Infrastructure and union contracts for Ardmore first responders were heavily discussed before approval during the Ardmore City Commission meeting back on Monday evening. Discussions throughout the meeting were about agreements with police and fire unions, projects at 2 Ardmore lakes, and project at the water treatment plant. A lot of the questioning, too, was dominated by Commissioner Buddy Simon, with over 10 minutes of discussion on Monday evening about a price increase for the new police station. A conversation that was marked by a rather contentious moment between him and fellow Commissioner Nancy Shulin.
Commissioner Simon, I might say it says that the door 102 was relocated. Do you see that where it's...
I do see that, and it says it was relocated 2 inches. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Because
so I'm talking about 2 inches for $825. And not to belabor the point, but if you want to question me and my ability to read it, I have read it. And I do understand how far they moved the door and why we moved it.
Shulin did not attempt to finish her statement. Now, the change order up for consideration was for just over $30,000. That's an additional cost for the total $15.6 million Ardmore Police Station that's currently under construction. Commissioner Simon asked Police Chief David Hauser several questions about this third change order since construction began late last year. Now, the change order explanation that was provided to the commission from Miller Tippins Construction broke down this $30,000 into 4 sections. Nearly half of the change order cost is related to additional foundation work that's needed after a discrepancy was discovered between architectural drawings and structural drawings. Other discrepancies were found related to wall supports, and an air conditioning unit that was originally bid out for the project ended up getting discontinued before it was actually purchased. That door relocation was necessary after review of a metal panel shop drawings that found a 2-inch strip of metal interfering with a door installation. That explanation reading, quote, "The easiest way to resolve this issue was to relocate the exterior door by 2 inches further south. This eliminated the small sliver and kept the elevation of the building clean and the metal panel joints aligned." Here again was Commissioner Buddy Simon on Monday evening.
$825 is not a whole lot of money when we're talking about an almost $16 million structure and a large construction deal. But it's still $825 to move the door by 2 inches.
Ardmore Police Chief David Hauser said that the number of change orders submitted during the project can actually be tied to the method by which estimated costs have evolved into real costs.
For this project, it was determined to use a project delivery method of a hard bid. This requires any contractor to be as competitive as possible with their bid, which usually means no contingencies are set aside. The initial cost of the project looks more attractive in a hard bid because the bidder's got to be competitive. However, the project may end up being more expensive to the owner because instead of having contingencies to pull from, they've got to address all the project needs through change orders like today. Also, in a hard bid project, the contractor is not involved during the design, which is probably the most important aspect here. The contractor not being involved in the design project, so they can assist in any cost-saving measures or gaps in the scope early on.
The change order approved by commissioners back on Monday was the third for the new police station. The first change order back in February increased the total cost by a little over $104,000. The second change order dropped the price by almost $96,000. The commission originally approved $15,585,000 for construction back in August of 2025. After this most recent change order on Monday, the cost now sits at $15,623, about 0.2% higher. Simon had plenty of other questions about the public works spending under consideration this week, asking about the need for vegetation removal at dams at 2 city-owned lakes, also asking about a chlorine scrubber at the water treatment plant. Public Works Director Melissa Lang said that the nearly $240,000 vegetation removal is actually done every few years when roots threaten to damage concrete. She said that the chlorine scrubber is a piece of safety equipment at the water treatment plant that can help mitigate an accidental release of chlorine. While routine in-house testing and maintenance of that equipment is carried out on a pretty regular basis, the nearly $140,000 rehabilitation project provides a deeper inspection of that 20-year-old piece of equipment. Here is Public Works Director Melissa Lang on Monday.
After 20 years, we felt like we need to get inside there and really check it out.
Ardmore City Schools is preparing for reduced spending as federal pandemic-era funding ends. District Finance Director Perry Zysett gave school board members the update during the final regular meeting of the 25-26 fiscal year back on Tuesday. Board members heard early plans to address a projected $900,000 shortfall for the upcoming fiscal year budget. With personnel costs accounting for a large portion of district spending, Zysett said that workforce reductions will likely lead spending cuts.
83 to 85% of our budget is payroll. And so those are going to be, some of those cuts will have to come in that area. Now, we're already working toward that. We've already made some adjustments. And I'm working to figure out if those adjustments are sufficient enough for this next year. And if they are, great. If they're not, if we can cut it down, say half, then we still have a sufficient carryover to give us another year to do that. And so that's what we've been doing over the last 2 years, is gradually cutting back.
Much of the reduced spending is actually a result of ESSER funds ending. ESSER funds stands for Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief, and that fund was set up by Congress back in 2020 to provide schools with emergency financial assistance during the COVID-19 pandemic. Ardmore City Schools received over $11 million in 3 different distribution rounds before that program ended back in September of 2024. The district is also dealing with the financial repercussions of a geothermal unit failure at Ardmore High School back in March that caused flood damage, HVAC damage, and closed the campus for over 5 weeks. The district has spent $149,000 to address the damage caused, and Zysett said that the Oklahoma Schools Insurance Group actually denied a portion of that claim.
OSIG, our property insurance company, denied $21,000 of that claim, stating that $1,600 were non-coverable charges and $20,000 must be treated as a new event subject to the $100,000 deductible. This new event, they claim, is pertaining to the evaluation and removal of volatile chemicals that became wet due to a subsequent event in the science lab because of the geothermal leak.
Board member Jimmy John spent part of the meeting questioning a proposed student handbook update that prohibits pajamas during school. John questioned the subjectivity and the application of the ban, while site administrators have said that the move is to give parents clarity on what is acceptable from students. Jefferson Elementary School Principal Lori Brookshire, that's the grade center that handles 5th and 6th grade Ardmore City School students, Brookshire told board members that the pajama prohibition is less about the clothing material or style and more about the hazards posed by house shoes on campus or sometimes the disturbing graphics that can be found on pajama pants.
We shy away from anything violent. So knives, blood and guts, any of those things that are on pajama pants, which are on a lot of male version of pajama pants that they sell at Walmart and other specific places. We've got to either send them home or we've got to inconvenience a parent to come and bring something else.
That proposed handbook update was approved by the board, with John the lone no vote. The district will also be again providing parking and shuttle service during the United Way Barbecue Showdown at Regional Park coming up in August. Board members asked several questions about the costs to the district and whether organizations could also help provide shuttle service. Zysett said that he would provide board members with more information about the costs associated with parking and shuttle service at their next board meeting. District Superintendent Andy Davis said that providing the service for the United Way fundraiser is a way for the district to give back to the organization and community.
This is pretty much us providing the service for the community because they give us so much with the United Way. This is us giving back to the community.
Now, before the Ardmore City Schools Board of Education voted to enter executive session to discuss personnel items on Monday, John asked about the absence of Board President Steve Oliver, who has not been present at a meeting since April. Davis and Board Vice President Jacqueline Woods said that Oliver has been in touch with district and board officials about his absence. After returning to open session, the board approved most personnel items, with the exception of hiring 35 emergency certified staff members. John told board members that he had questions about their qualifications of some of those staff members. Woods said that those questions should have been brought up during the closed-door executive session to protect personal information of potential hires. John and fellow board member James Foreman voted to table those hires, while Woods and board member Lori Capshaw voted to approve those hires. With both motions receiving split 2-2 votes, both motions failed, and those hires were not approved. Does your group or organization have a public event coming up? Don't forget, every episode of This Week in Ardmore wraps up with the schedule to give listeners an idea of just a few things happening around town. Email your event details to connect@ardmoreleader.com or give me a call or even a text and tell me all about it. 580-319-9688. Let's advance local news together. Right now, let's wrap up our look at in-depth news with Ardmore financial advisor Cody Steele to hear about some stocks of local interest and hear his Edward Jones market snapshot commentary from Thursday afternoon.
This is financial advisor Cody Steele from Edward Jones, bringing you the daily financial market report. Stocks rebounded at the close on a holiday-shortened week on Thursday after U.S. President Trump signed an interim peace deal with Iran, paving the way for a reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. The S&P 500 jumped 1.2% over the session, reversing much of Wednesday's slide after a more hawkish than expected FOMC meeting, with the Nasdaq even stronger on the news that Intel had struck a chip-making deal with Apple. Despite the positive tone in markets and West Texas Intermediate trading around recent lows of $77 a barrel, the front end of the U.S. government debt market remained under pressure. Yields on the 2-year Treasury note traded at 4.18%, just a shade off of yesterday's 2026 high. However, longer-dated debt continues to perform better, with the 10-year Treasury yield rallying to 4.45% and the 30-year yield down to 4.9%, a 3-month low. Finally, the shift higher in short-term U.S. rates continues to support the dollar, with this moving to a new 2026 high against a trade-weighted basket of currencies. Thursday morning's initial unemployment insurance claims data were broadly stable at low levels, with this closely followed measure of labor market health telling us that firms are not cutting back on staff in concerning numbers at present. In our view, this solid labor market backdrop helps explain Wednesday's hawkish shift from the Fed. In the March summary of economic projections, the FOMC members were overwhelmingly warning that the risks were tilted towards rising unemployment. At Wednesday's meeting, the signal was that the risk of the labor market were broadly balanced. Meanwhile, almost every member continues to see the risk to their inflation forecast as tilted to the upside. This shift in risk distribution helps explain why around half of the committee thought that an interest rate hike this year might be needed. The good news for the Fed, in our view, is that some relief from inflation pressures is likely coming over the summer. Average national gasoline prices fell below $4 a gallon on Wednesday and should further fall in coming weeks if oil continues to trade in the $70 to $80 per barrel range. This should likely quickly feed through to a softer headline inflation readings. This trend will not be captured in next week's May PCE inflation report, which looks set to show another strong gain in price growth. However, we should see softer inflation in June CPI and PCE durable goods reports. Otherwise, on the data calendar next week, we will get a first look at business investment in May in the durable goods reports, consumer spending trends in May personal income and spending data, and a more timely read on business sentiment in June PMI figures. Finally, we'll be watching out for the FOMC members' commentary to better understand the motivations for the hawkish shift at Wednesday's meeting, especially given the more pared-back guidance presented by Chair Warsh at the press conference. On Thursday, U.S. equities closed higher. The Dow closed up 74 points, or 0.14%, at 51,567. The Nasdaq closed up 496 points, or 1.91%, at 26,518. The S&P 500 closed up 81 points, or 1.09%, at 7,501. And in the bond market on Thursday, 10-year Treasury yields were trading at 4.45%, lower by 0.04 percentage points. In stocks of local interest on Thursday, ExxonMobil was down $2.93 to $137.81 a share. Devon was down 46 cents to $42.12 a share. OG&E was down 4 cents to $47.30 a share. O'Reilly's was down $1.56 to $86.84 a share. Walmart was down 95 cents to $117.18 a share. Albertsons was down 96 cents to $13.45 a share. Dollar Tree was up $5.24 to $111.65 a share. And lastly, Dollar General was up $4.76 to $113.45 a share. In commodity markets on Thursday, the price of crude oil was down 43 cents or 0.57% at $75.60 a barrel. And the spot price of gold was down $146.40 or 3.34% to $4,235 an ounce. This has been Thursday's Financial Market Report, brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cody Steele, member SIPC, serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice at 333 West Main Street, Suite 275 in Ardmore, Oklahoma. If you would like additional information, please contact me at 580-223-3870. Daily commentary is also located on our website at edwardjones.com.
This week's podcast is sponsored by Ardmore Emporium Antiques Mall right here in downtown Ardmore. Now, when you find yourself looking for a birthday gift, an anniversary present, maybe a last-minute Father's Day gift, or maybe you're just looking for something that you're not going to find at any big box store, head over to 105 East Main Street in downtown Ardmore and browse what over 70 vendors have to offer at Ardmore Emporium Antiques Mall. Vintage decor, furniture, jewelry, tools, collectibles, a whole lot more. 105 East Main Street. Find them on Facebook or online at ardmoreemporiumantiques.com. Big thanks again to Ardmore Emporium Antiques Mall for helping Ardmore Leader advance local news. All right, here's the rundown of how to find Ardmore Leader in between these podcasts. We distribute newsletters across town. You can also get a digital copy of that newsletter emailed to you every week. Check out our website, ardmoreleader.com, scroll towards the bottom of the homepage, and get signed up for free. You can also follow us on social media. Just search Ardmore Leader on whichever platform you use and see if we're there. You can do the same with whichever music and podcasting app you use, and then subscribe to this podcast and get notified of new episodes every Friday. Do you want to share your thoughts, your ideas, or even some artwork for Ardmore to see? We can help with that too. Visit ardmoreleader.com, head over to the opinion section, and from there you can submit a letter to the editor. But if you want to email me like a cartoon, a piece of art, maybe a video you've made, you can even record a voice note and then email that to soundoff@ardmoreleader.com. We can post videos to our social media, to our website. We can include audio submissions right here on the podcast. Whatever you're doing, make sure you include your full name in that email so you can stand behind your submission. And don't forget, if your group or organization has a public event coming up, let me know, and I'll see it getting on the schedule. In public meetings coming up next week, the Carter County Commission will hold their regular meeting on Monday morning, June 22nd at 9 a.m. at the County Administration Building on the corner of A Street and Broadway in downtown Ardmore. That agenda is available on the county's website right now, cartercountyok.us. The Plainview Public Schools Board of Education will hold their regular monthly meeting coming up on Monday, June 22nd at 6:30 p.m. in the boardroom at the district's administration office there on Mile Road. The agenda for that meeting can be found on the district's website, plainview.k12.ok.us. And while most of the agenda has to do with transitioning to a new fiscal year, that agenda is also expected to include proposed handbook changes and increases in meal costs for students and adults. The Ardmore City Schools Summer Fine Arts Camp is getting ready to show off what they've been working on this summer. Join the ACS Elementary Fine Arts Camp students coming up on Wednesday, June 24th at 6 p.m. at Lincoln Elementary, as they're going to be bringing energy, music, and fun to the stage with their show Let's Jam, It's Our Band. Come check out what these talented young performers have been working on this summer, happening on Wednesday, June 24th at 6 p.m. at Lincoln Elementary on Stanley Street. And don't forget, too, Food Truck Friday happening every Friday this summer here in Depot Park. Catch up with neighbors, visit some downtown merchants, and then enjoy lunch from food trucks and other vendors in the park. Food Truck Friday, hosted by the Ardmore Main Street Authority, happening every Friday from 11 a.m. until 7 p.m. in Depot Park. A Family Fun Day is coming up on Saturday, June 27th. You can join the group Real Dads Do Real Things for this Family Fun Day at Murray State College Ardmore campus. Organizers are still looking for some vendors and donors who might want to be part of this Family Fun Day, scheduled for Saturday, June 27th from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. at the Murray State College Ardmore campus. Area women are invited to the She Showed Up luncheon that's coming up on Saturday, June 27th. The Healing Hearts Counseling Services was hosting this event at the Jerome Westheimer Performing Arts Center for an afternoon of celebrating and empowering women. This event, happening from 11 a.m. through 2 p.m., will be free to join, but those interested are asked to bring a $25 gift that's meant to be encouraging, empowering, or something for self-care that can then be swapped and traded with other women. Wear your best white outfit to the She Showed Up luncheon coming up on Saturday, June 27th, hosted by Healing Hearts Counseling Services. If you've got questions or if you want to get registered by June 24th, call Shanita at 855-843-2548. A free Taekwondo demonstration is happening in Central Park coming up on Independence Day. Start your July 4th off with this Taekwondo demonstration and watch students and instructors perform patterns, show off their kicks. You can learn some basic self-defense, and you might even be able to take a shot at breaking a board. The Jungtung Taekwondo Association will be holding their free annual demonstration coming up on Saturday, July 4th at 11 a.m. at the Central Park stage. All ages and physical abilities are welcome to attend. I'm Ardmore Leader News Director Michael Dean Smith. Thank you so much for listening to episode 68 of This Week in Ardmore. Quick note, I am heading to a family reunion next week, so make sure you're subscribed on whichever podcast platform you use to catch our next episode. Follow us online, ardmoreleader.com, or on social media. And until Friday, July 3rd, I hope you have a positive 2 weeks ahead.